Let's talk about all of those weapons that we've sent to Ukraine. And for that, let's do a thought experiment. I want to do a little thought experiment. Why would Congress suddenly rush to approve $40 billion in heavy weapons in Ukraine? Good question, right? Weapons that we haven't actually seen on the battlefield yet. Why would Nancy Pelosi and Mitch McConnell both make sudden trips to meet Vladimir Zelensky? Why would Zelensky be asking for newer, heavier weapons from American weapons contractors? I ask you to sit with that for a moment. Let just like wash over you like a steam bath. Now, if you watch Western media like CNN, MSNBC, no doubt you've seen headlines and so forth telling you that Vladimir Putin is on the run, how the Russian army is being crushed by an unexpected and powerful Ukrainian army, that they're impressed by it. Of course, they're being fed that information from NATO. Here's Atlantic Magazine with why Ukraine is winning. This is their headline. Why Ukraine is winning. Ukraine's success illuminates a strategy that has allowed a smaller state to so far outlast a larger and much more powerful enemy, right? And when you go through it, it has a whole strategy that they break down. Then they talk about the ingenious strategy over at the Sunday Morning Herald. This is another ingenious strategy that they lay out. Ingenious strategy that could win the war for Ukraine. This is just a few days ago, May 17th. They're talking about the ingenious strategy that could win the war for Ukraine. So here's CNN now with a big wet kiss from General David Petraeus. Now, you remember David Petraeus, right? He, of course, was the big to-do in Iraq. In Iraq, of course. David Petraeus, he was on CNN with a big wet kiss about how Ukraine is crushing the Russian army and how they're all so impressed over there at CNN. It's just amazing to watch these guys. Watch.
The Iraq invasion. General, it's good to have you on this morning. As I've been watching this, and I'm sure you as well, watching this unfold, we are all impressed by Ukrainian resolve and some successes early on in the first week of this war. But, and I think we'll put the map up here, Russian forces are advancing, particularly in the south, more slowly in the east and the north, but they are getting into position to surround key cities. Without sounding pessimistic, really just wanting to be realistic, is really? Ukraine losing this war right now?
Well, they're losing some ground, Jim, but I don't think they're losing the war. In fact, I don't think that this is a war ultimately that Russia and Vladimir Putin can win.
Oh, really?
But isn't losing any part of your country losing? Originally, when the war started, it was we're going to expel you completely and retain the integrity of our country, and that is no longer. So is it losing any piece of your country losing?
I would think so, but not according to CNN. I mean, they're telling you, right? They've got the map. They've got the digital map. They've got David Petraeus. They've got former CIA director, U.S. Army General David Petraeus, retired, to tell you that he doesn't see how in the world Russia wins this thing. I don't understand it. Okay, so to hear the Western media explain it, Russia is on the run and Ukraine is winning. Now let's get back to our original question. Why would Congress rush to approve $40 billion in heavy weapons to Ukraine if they're doing so great? Remember how great those Javelin missiles were? The success we heard about against Russia? Here's more corporate media, CNBC, in the United States explaining how good these Javelin missiles are and how well they're doing against the enemy.
One of the most effective and expensive weapon systems supplied is the FGM-148 Javelin.
The Javelin is co-manufactured between Lockheed Martin and Raytheon, and it is a portable anti-armor system.
This means the Javelin is designed to take out hard targets like modern tanks and armored personnel carriers, or APCs. At a cost of close to $176,000 per system, the Javelin is not a cheap weapon of war.
Oh, it's not cheap. $150,000 for those things? Okay, sounds great, right? Or maybe not. So could it be that, in fact, the Western media has been lying to you? Is that possible? Well, we actually learned over the weekend that the billions of dollars in lighter weapons that we've sent to Ukraine have had major functional problems. Yes, all of that stuff that American taxpayers have paid for hasn't really worked at all. In fact, we learned from military sources in Ukraine that most of these weapons came from mothballed warehouses in the United States. Many of those surface-to-air missile systems and shoulder-fired missiles haven't been used since the 1980s and the 1990s.
Jeez.
Think about that for a second. Like
there was not even, you couldn't, how do you charge those? What power source do they use?
They don't. Most of the batteries in these systems won't even power on for longer than a few minutes. So just think about this for a second. These things have been sitting in warehouses since when you were listening to like Nirvana albums, or like you were watching Mannequin 2. Not even Mannequin 1, like Mannequin 2. Like
Great
that,
film.
like been sitting in warehouses since then, collecting dust, not being powered on. So these Javelin missile systems have actually been a total disaster. Just take one. This is how one newspaper explained about it in the 1980s. Take a look at this. This is, for example, hundreds of Stingers supplied by the U.S. were seen as key to helping Mujahideen rebels drive Soviet forces out of Afghanistan in a conflict that spanned the 1980s and 1990s. Right, so those Stinger missiles were used in the 1980s in Afghanistan against Soviet forces.
So, I'm sorry, my ignorance. You think that it's like the shell, the launcher, right, is the piece of equipment, and in theory, you can just replace the actual missile with new ones. So what they're finding is this sort of shell launcher that we just saw. It's like taking a power tool out of your garage and you haven't used it in a decade.
Right.
And you realize, oh, this doesn't work anymore because I
Maybe
haven't been using it.
Maybe the blades still work, like of my hedge trimmer, but the battery doesn't. Like that thing won't charge anymore. Like imagine, like when you had those old light flashlights, like growing up as a kid, and it had the metal screw off top, and it had like that spring in the middle that would like go down in the batteries. And anytime you like open the batteries, like the batteries were all
battery
acid everywhere, right? We've all been there. Those D batteries or the C batteries. You're like, Mom, do you have any C batteries up in the house? Mom, do you have that meatloaf? And sad part is that, that's exactly the same situation with these. It's like, here you go. Here are these old Javelin missile systems, or even some that are somewhat new, or these Stinger missile systems that haven't really been used since the 1980s or 1990s. So these wire-guided anti-tank missiles need power. They need battery power. What is true is that in the early days, this is true. So, we always are fair on this show. What is true in the early days of the war in Ukraine, they actually had great success using those Stinger missiles to shoot down Russian aircraft. About 35 Russian jets were downed as a result. Even Russia acknowledged that in their media. Russia came out and said, hey, we've actually lost more jets than we wanted at the hands of these Stinger missiles. Then guess what happened? Russia figured out how to defeat them pretty quickly. It took them about 2 weeks to figure this out, but they found multiple weaknesses in these Stinger missiles. According to military pilots I've spoken to, Russian Air Force figured out that flying lower to the ground actually makes the Stinger missiles useless, because by the time they can fire, that jet is already gone. It's already over their head. That's just one of the many ways they figured out.
Because you would think the tracking system is so much more advanced in the last 30 years.
Right. Or by the time you have to be able to position it up in the sky, like this jet is already low enough to the ground, and so you don't even see it coming because it's coming through like tree line. It's right there on top of you, and by the time you have a chance to react or get this thing pointed at the aircraft, it's already gone. It's like it's like Tom Cruise in Top Gun buzzing the tower. It's like, oh crap, this thing's already over us. Not to mention the fact that they have heat deployment and decoys and other things that they've now figured out how to use. So if you do fire a Stinger missile, they're able to do a heat decoy and these things fly off. So it's really fascinating once you unpack how the Western media has been spinning this shit over the past few weeks, right? They've been all telling us, right? They've been telling us that they're winning, they're doing great. But so the most powerful weapons the Ukrainians have right now, and they've been using to even moderate effect, are those 155 millimeter howitzer cannons that have been basically abandoned by the U.S. military because they're useless against a country that has jet aircraft. Now, we can use them against guys on camels in Afghanistan, which we have, and really only the Marines still use these. And they attach them to the back of a tow truck. I actually have some video of what these things look like. These are the howitzers. Let me see if I can pull them up. These are what these 155 millimeter howitzers look like. And Ukraine is using these. This is a video out of the desert, but you can see how the Marines actually have to detach these. They have to tow them to a spot, okay? And then a group of guys has to get out, place them on the ground, and they have to fire them, right? So they have to get them out. They have to set them first. They have to lay out all of the legs, okay? and they have to know what target they're trying to hit. Then they have to, and it takes a lot of manpower. These things are not easy and quickly maneuverable. So then you have to crank them down. And by the time you get these set, you're talking like 10, 15 minutes till you get it set. Okay. Once you get it ready, then you fire. Okay, here we go. Ready to fire. I'm going to crank it up. It's like World War II. These are like the toys I had in World War II. And so these have...
You were not in World War II, darling.
No, but the toys that I had, like the little green soldier guys. Like,
yes.
So, all right, we got it all ready to go. We got the sand. We're ready to go. Let's fire this thing, right? Now I fire it. And what happens is the Russian Air Force is able to pinpoint exactly where these things are firing from within about 5 minutes of being placed on the ground. So then they're destroyed. I'm sure you've actually seen a ton of videos over the past few weeks showing all of these howitzers on the Ukrainian side being destroyed. That's what's happening. So what you're seeing is Ukrainian howitzers provided by the United States military that we don't even use anymore because they're basically defunct against anybody with an Air Force.
Right.
Right?
I mean, it's not funny at all.
But like we're here, like take our garbage.
But
it's basically
this is
like take
exactly
these old
why in the conversation around the weaponry that we're shipping, there is also a follow-up saying, and we will also replace our own stores, right? So it's good for us. It's like, when Clayton has a neighbor who wants his old lawnmower and he's like, good, because I wanted the electric one anyway, right? So he's always happy to send out the old one and if he can upgrade. So, you can see how there's really no such thing as altruism.
So these things, look how cumbersome these things are, right? These things, and then they get destroyed almost instantly. So in a few weeks, whatever's left over, it's like, take our junk, our old yard sale stuff, because we don't need it anymore. So basically all of the small anti-tank weapons and just about everything that we've sent to Ukraine has been rendered either obsolete or the Russians knew we were sending it to them through Poland and then they destroyed it, which is what happened with all those Switchblade drones. Do you guys remember this? We were talking here on the show how they're like getting all excited about the Switchblade drones that were going to be sent. These things are going to be fired up in the air. They're going to be able to take out tanks from the air. Well, Russia knew exactly where they were. So when they got delivered, they just got destroyed in the warehouse. They knew exactly where they were. And that's exactly what happened yesterday. Just shortly before we went on the air, we got confirmation from Russia that they, in fact, at the Russian media, announced that they just attacked a major weapons depot inside of Ukraine, all Western weapons that we sent. So your tax dollars hard at work. As soon as it's arriving there, it's being destroyed. And to what effect, by the way? Like, how long does this go on? So let's get back to our...
it has an effect on the environment. But we don't care about that.
Yes.
The what?
The what? What are you talking about, Greta Thunberg over here?
You can't just blow things up and think that there's no carbon footprint.
Blah, blah.
Russia or the United States, like they're already, it blows my mind how we really have a conversation about the carbon footprint of an avocado. But we will not talk about what it takes to ship overseas across continent.
No, you can't talk about
this
that.
heavy weaponry. Okay.
And it's all destroyed in waters and in streams and rivers. And so you have like all of these
Absolutely.
just
It
leaching crap
leaks chemicals into
Yeah.
the soil. So, I mean, on the one hand, we should be happy that there was no spring planting in Ukraine for wheat because we would be digesting runoff.
Exactly. And you like radiated bullets or whatever the hell else they're using.
Absolutely, yes.
So let's get back to our original question then. This is a good thought experiment because I want all of you who are watching right now, this is not a show, like the reason we do this show is that we want to provide nuance here, right? We told you about how Russians were being shot down, their aircraft shot down and attacked successfully. We're telling you how these light aircraft and these light weapons are absolutely a disaster and a waste of money. So why would Congress then rush to approve $40 billion in heavy weapons to Ukraine if they're doing so well over there? If everything is going according to plan, if you watch Western media, everything is great. Well, the answer is they're not. And I think this is a real moment now for the United States. We are now escalating this war to the point of no return. We are admitting that all of these small arms don't work, they're obsolete, and we're clearly seeing it in action. And a couple of big things stand out to me here because over the past few days, right, we had American taxpayers have been sold a bill of goods about this whole thing, that they've been sold and told that these billions you've spent have given us the strongest military in the world with the greatest weapons, right? So you think, oh, the United States, right? We got all these Javelin missiles, these Stinger missiles. We're spending all of this money on this stuff. We've got the greatest military and weapons in the world. And then actually when they get to the battlefield against a real enemy, not some guy on a camel, right?
Well, by many accounts, though, Russia has some pretty obsolete equipment, too.
Well, they have far more advanced equipment now than we do. In fact, some of their jamming equipment.
But we are not Ukrainian, right? We're talking about us as American passport holders that send.
I'm talking about Americans who've been sold and told that they have the strongest and best military in the world, and that's why
we have to send this savior package.
You have to pay more for gas at home because you're supporting the greatest military in the world. You have to pay more for rent at home. You have to pay more for everything in the United States because you have the greatest military in the world. And now what we've seen over the past 90 days or 60, 70 days or whatever is that all of the stuff are Javelin missiles that we're now ordering more of, don't work, aren't working, and are literally being like they're obsoleted as the moment they get there. The Switchblade drones destroyed the moment they're getting there. Stinger missiles basically obsolete because now Russia's figured out with heat decoys and how to fly low that these things are basically worthless. All the howitzers you're sending over there, worthless. So now we are starting to send the $40 billion package, which includes now we're going to be sending over these M270s, these MLSLR programs. We showed you these videos the other day. This is the new stuff that Zelensky wants. He's been asking the United States government, we need the heavier stuff. We need stuff that can shoot 100 kilometers into Russia. This is the stuff they want now. So now we're starting to send all of this stuff. Biden at first was like, oh, we're not going to do this. And then he relented. They want more, bigger, heavier. They want like now the top of the line. Because now this is going to, now we're talking about escalating into full World War III. This is, make no mistake about it, guys, this is World War III. We're literally sending the biggest things we have now to the front lines.
Well, and again, before this package was even announced, Raytheon had said, we don't think we can even fulfill orders within the first or the second quarter of this year. And so thus you see these sort of front of the line supply chain that we're like, just make it happen, right? So when we want something, we can make that kind of stuff happen. Small business aid, COVID aid, we can drag our feet about that.
Yeah, and I just want to ask, like, as we wrap this up, like, why no members of Congress are standing up for this, like, and saying, this is ridiculous. Like, enough is enough. No way. No way. And then you have people like Ted Cruz, like, justifying that this is making you and America safer. But this is the truth about what's happening. These weapons that we've sent have been a total disaster. Ukraine is being wiped out, okay? They're pulling out these howitzers as their last sort of resort right now, and they're being destroyed. And so you have to ask yourselves as people of the free world, like, what do you want? Do you want an endless, protracted proxy war? That NATO-funded, United States-backed proxy war that will go on and on and on for years and years and years. This is what it's come to now when we send these billions of dollars. This is only going to run through September, by the way. They said this will last us through September, this $40 billion.
Yes. And I think it bothers me a lot that they won't sort of give us the just give us the straight talk to say we are at war and at least vote for it. Like, put us in a formal war, because then at least we know, what we're dealing with. But sort of fighting with money is the same, right? And so you think of the soldiers that number that you just put on the screen, 18,000 soldiers that will be harmed in this conflict zone. They will not have the benefits package of being in an active conflict zone. That matters when you retire from the military. So we're not paying them the proper respect by sending people in there who will not get compensated for the risk that they're taking. And I just feel like it's, what's the word I'm looking for? It's disrespectful to not give it to us straight and say, we're not really in war. But
they're liars.
But we're spending billions.
I mean, you're being nice. I think they're absolute corrupt liars. I mean, the whole machine is doing so well. All of these weapons contractors and politicians in Washington and people are just being crushed right now. And they're doing fine. The military-industrial complex and the larger NATO-backed powers right now are doing absolutely fine. And this is all coming together according to plan. And then, of course, you had Biden yesterday in Japan saying, yeah, we would defend Taiwan against a military incursion. We support a one China policy, which means we don't actually technically even agree that Taiwan is separate. But wait a minute, if China then comes in and takes Taiwan back, we will step in with military force, but we support a one China policy? How does that freaking make any sense?
It doesn't. I mean, we don't support Taiwan when it comes to the World Health Organization.
No.
Taiwan was excluded, and we're fine with that.
Right.
Okay.
I love the big bowl of hypocrisy. Thank you so much for subscribing to our channel. You know, we've been banned, we've been blocked, we've been censored. That's why we started our own website, to stay connected with you for free.
That's right. So head on over to redacted.inc and make sure you're connected with us. You can sign up again at redacted.inc, not .com.